Hi, everybody. This is Teo. Welcome to the first ever episode of the No Fixed Address podcast. I want to preface this by saying this is also my first podcast, so you might have to bear with me just for a bit as I get the hang of things, but still, welcome and thank you so much for being here with me today. Firstly, I wanted to introduce myself. So, hello, I'm Teo. I'm the one and only host for No Fixed Address. I am currently a junior here at UIC and I'm majoring in political science and I'm minoring in economics. I'm also an international student, so I was born and raised in Romania up until 2 years ago when I decided that college in the US is the next step that I want to take in my life. And leaving home is never easy, especially when there's a whole ocean between you and the life that you left behind. But that's exactly how No Fixed Address came to be. I realized that I'm not the only one going through these experiences, and there's a whole community out there that has had to leave home, not only as an international student, but also as somebody who is maybe an hour drive away from home. It's never easy just leaving behind all these people that you grew up with and having to find a new identity in a new place where you really don't have a community or a support system. So I'm hoping that No Fixed Address is going to become a safe space for all of you guys to realize that you're not alone and you're really not the only one experiencing this right now. There's a whole community behind you. So without further ado, let's start our first episode of No Fixed Address. So as an international student here in the US for the past 2 years, I've kind of learned that home isn't necessarily a place. For me personally, it's more about the people. But I know that some people can think it's a mindset, or again, you can disagree with me and just think that home is this one specific place in your life, which is completely okay. But for the first episode, I wanted to get a bit personal. I wanted to talk about change and what it means to redefine your home, and also just like embracing the new experiences that you get to have, especially if it means just starting over, because there's nothing wrong with doing it. So, as I said earlier, I moved to the US 2 years ago for university. But what I didn't mention was the fact that I actually started my college experience at Roosevelt University, who's right here downtown in Chicago. It's like 3 Blue Line stops away. So, transferring to UIC wasn't the biggest change for me. But what was the fact that I had to stop playing tennis because I had been playing tennis for the past 17 years of my life, which is 85% of the life that I've lived so far. So my life was kind of built around this routine of practice, eat, class, eat again, and then maybe have a few hours for homework and then just do it all over again the next day. And I will admit the choice to stop playing tennis wasn't necessarily my own. There were some other factors that went into it, but what it made me realize when I was kind of thrown into this new life where I had lost a big part of my identity was that I didn't know who I was outside of the court. So it was like hitting reset on my whole life. There was new campus, there was new professors, there was new people that I was interacting with. And it felt like I had moved away from home all over again. I was feeling so alone, especially because I think I felt like I had perfected this version of myself here in Chicago. And so having to transfer felt like I had to start over all over again. And it was hard. I remember, I think it was orientation was the first time that I actually realized that, wow, I really stopped playing tennis. I'm no longer an athlete. And I really don't know what to do with myself now, which was terrifying, but also freeing. I realized that there's this silence that comes when a part of your life or identity ends, and that no one really prepares you for the identity gap that follows afterwards. So I had to go through the whole existential crisis of who am I, because I didn't know myself. And it's scary. You don't want to realize that you're 20 and you don't actually know who you are. But slowly, the question stopped being so scary and it actually started being exciting, because I realized without tennis, I had so much time on my hands that I could discover who I am. And I also realized that by not playing anymore, I wasn't necessarily losing tennis. I can always go back and start playing again. Now I get to explore other sides of who I am, the student, the person trying to figure out how to make it in the world. And so I really felt like a new version of me is blooming. And I think what this whole transition reminded me of yet again is how to adapt and how to find comfort in new spaces. Because it's never easy realizing you're the only person in a room that doesn't know anyone. And so it kind of took me back to the first few weeks that I had as a freshman when I came here 2 years ago. The fact that I had to actively turn around and start conversations with people. And it wasn't easy, clearly. I had lost some of the confidence that I think I used to have when doing that. But with time, it became a lot easier to do it. And I realized that the transfer wasn't just about me moving from one institution to another. It's about this constant evolving and growing that we have to do as people, and that letting go of an idea that you had created in your mind about how life was going to look like isn't a bad thing. I think change really is good. And also I think this is how I discovered UICRadio. I had to go out there and go to fairs, involvement fairs, and talk to people and try to realize what else I like and what else I would like to do with my life. And that's how I discovered the UICRadio table. And, I thought to myself, maybe a podcast where I talk about the experiences that I go through isn't a bad thing, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that's experiencing this fear of change, and especially of losing a version of yourself that you thought you knew and you thought maybe it was going to be permanent. And this kind of plays into that idea that home isn't a place, it's more so the people, because yes, I am far away from home, so my family wasn't necessarily here in person with me going through this process, but I had other people. I had the support system that I had the chance of building already at Roosevelt that really helped me feel okay with this change that I'm going through. And so for all the people that are far away from home that are hearing this experience of mine, I hope you know that taking the leap isn't a bad thing. It's actually, I think, really good for yourself to figure out who you really are in a lot of different perspectives. And so I've been here for the last month and a half. And I think what I realized was that it does get easier. I think, people usually tell us that time heals everything. And I think in some way it's right. But I also have to be honest and say that I would call it grief. I tell people that it's like going through a breakup, this transfer that I've had to go through. So I still feel those emotions, I think it hits when you least expect it. But I've learned to not be scared of feeling them and more so just embracing it. And I think also what helped is creating little routines for myself that made this change a lot easier. So to whoever is listening, if you're going through a big change right now, I encourage you to, go to that coffee place that you're thinking of trying, or just turn into the person in class that you've been meaning to start a conversation with and just say hi and see where it goes from there. I think also this first episode of UICRadio is showing that I'm continuing to evolve. I was really scared actually to record this, and I know it's a short video, but it's a great way for myself to just start somewhere. And so I think kind of as we're closing out this episode, I want to really focus on this idea of just starting somewhere. Because while we're scared of change, I think sometimes we don't realize that we're not necessarily starting fresh, but we're kind of starting from experience that we already have. And so, dear listener, thank you so much for listening to me today yap about my life. I know this episode probably feels a bit all over the place because I think that I do too. Again, this is yet another new experience for me. But I really just want to thank you for being here today. I hope that if you leave with anything from this episode is that change is good. And I think, don't be scared to take that step. And I hope this week you get to do something that you've been meaning to, maybe you've been hesitating on. And I hope it brings you joy. And even if you're scared and it feels like a fail afterwards, I hope you still find happiness in the fact that you did it. and you're proud of yourself, because I am. So that brings to an end our first episode of No Fixed Address. I know I've said this already, but thank you for listening and making it to the end. And I hope you'll come back next week, where I promise that the episode is going to be longer, and also it's going to feel less all over the place. So I hope you have an amazing rest of your Thursday. And next week, we're going to keep talking about experiences being away from home. And I think we're really going to focus on losing your support system and what that means to somebody. So have a great week, and I'll see you back here Thursday 2 to 3 p.m. Bye.